I was 9 years old when my family broke in half. It wasn't a sudden explosion. It was more like watching a crack form in a glass window, slowly crawling its way across everything I thought was solid. I still remember the night the crack split wide open. My parents, Mark and Elena, had been arguing a lot by then. Not the loud, plate-shattering kind. More like Cold War tension, conversations laced with venom wrapped in calm voices. I never saw them touch each other. No hugs, no kisses, no hands brushed across a shoulder in passing. Just silence. Sometimes the silence was worse than screaming. We lived in a 2-story house in the suburbs. White panel siding, a blue front door. My room was upstairs across from my brother Miles' room. Well, half-brother, technically. I was the daughter of Elena and her first husband, who died when I was too young to remember him. Miles was Mark's son. But we never called each other half. We were just brother and sister. That night, my mother sat me down in the living room. The TV was off. The house was too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I could see her hands trembling, even though she tried to keep them in her lap. Her voice was calm, but her eyes weren't. "Casey, your father and I have decided. We're getting a divorce." I stared at her for a second, waiting for the punchline. Then I looked over at Mark, who stood near the staircase, arms crossed, face blank like he was watching a news report about someone else's tragedy. He didn't nod. He didn't blink. He didn't even look at me. I couldn't cry. Not at first. I was too busy trying to understand. Then I asked the question that mattered. What about Miles? The answer hit harder than the divorce itself. "He's going with his father," she said, trying to smile like this was fair. Like this made sense. No. I remember shouting. I didn't shout often, not back then. But I couldn't hold it in. "No, we're not splitting up." Mark finally spoke. "It's already decided." I wanted to scream at him. "You don't even care. You don't even look like you want us." But I didn't. I just turned to Miles, who was sitting on the bottom step, wide-eyed and hugging his stuffed lion. He didn't say anything. Just kept squeezing it like it might keep him here. 2 weeks later, the moving truck pulled up. The house emptied out faster than I thought it could. Mark took Miles to a townhouse across town. We weren't even allowed to visit each other for the first few months to adjust, as the custody lawyers put it. Like we were dogs in a kennel getting used to new owners. The first night without him, I snuck into his empty room and curled up on the floor where his bed used to be. His nightlight was gone. The posters of dinosaurs gone. Only a faint outline of where his dresser had been. I stared at the wall until I fell asleep. Things with my mom weren't easy. She tried. I'll give her that. She got a second job and took me to school early before her shift. Dinner became microwavable meals or whatever she could throw together at 9 p.m. Her eyes always looked tired. Her patience got thinner every week. I learned quickly not to complain. She didn't have energy for that. But she never talked about Mark. Not once. It was like he'd been erased. At school, I didn't tell anyone. What could I say? My dad took my brother and left me behind. Kids wouldn't understand. Some of them might even laugh. So I stayed quiet. I stopped inviting people over. I didn't want them to see the half-empty house. One day, a few months after the split, I saw Miles at a grocery store. I was with my mom, and he was holding Mark's hand. Mark looked right at us, nodded, and walked past. Didn't stop. Didn't say a word. I dropped my mom's hand and ran to Miles, but Mark pulled him away faster than I could reach him. I stood there crying in the cereal aisle while my mom tried to talk to the manager, embarrassed. Later that night, she told me not to worry. That things would settle down. That Mark was just being difficult. But it wasn't just that. Mark didn't want me. He never had. He tolerated me when I was under his roof. Looking back, I think he saw me as a reminder of my mom's first marriage. Of someone else's child. After a year, the custody agreement was solidified. I'd see Miles once a month, supervised. Like we were prisoners getting visitation rights. When we did see each other, it was at some play center in the back of a community center. Always the same plastic tables, same sad bending machine, same laminated rules on the wall. We'd play with Legos or cards, but he was changing. Quiet. Hesitant. Like he didn't know if he was allowed to love me anymore. I once asked him, "Do you miss me?" He didn't answer. Just nodded without looking up. Another time he said, "Dad says you're not really my sister." That one stuck with me. Like a splinter I could never pull out. Then came Christmas. I was with my mom. We had a fake tree, cheap decorations, and one strand of lights that only worked if you twisted it just right. I got a sweater and a secondhand iPod that only played when you pressed the earphones into the socket hard enough. But I didn't care. All I wanted was to talk to Miles. I called. Mark answered. "What do you want?" Can I talk to Miles?" Pause. "He's busy." Then he hung up. I didn't even tell my mom. I just went back to my room and didn't come out until dinner. That spring, my mom started dating someone new. Paul. He was fine, I guess. Polite. Brought flowers. Fixed the sink. But I didn't trust him. I didn't trust any man after Mark. And Paul was always just a little too nice. Too careful. Like he was waiting for me to like him before showing his real face. One night, I woke up to yelling downstairs. My mom and Paul. Something about money. Something about me being damaged goods. I didn't understand all of it, but I remember Paul saying, "You didn't tell me she came with that much baggage." I stayed in my room with the door locked until morning. When I came down, he was gone. My mom was at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee and a tear-streaked face. "Don't worry," she said, her voice hoarse. "He wasn't staying." I started sleepwalking not long after. Woke up in different rooms. Once in the hallway, once in the bathtub. My mom took me to a therapist who asked if I was processing trauma. I didn't know what to say. What trauma? Having a father who didn't want me? A brother who was being turned against me? By the time I turned 11, I'd learned not to expect much from people. Not even the ones who shared my blood. Mark never came to birthdays. Not once. No calls. No cards. Nothing. I saw Miles that year only twice. The last time he barely spoke. He was taller. Had braces. Wore different clothes. He looked like a stranger. And when we hugged goodbye, it felt like a formality, like a routine we were both tired of pretending mattered. When he left, I turned to the wall and started pulling at the edge of the table sticker until it came off. That was the day I stopped calling him my brother out loud. I still thought it sometimes in secret, but I never said it again. My mom once tried to get a new custody arrangement. Hired a lawyer and everything. But Mark fought it. Said I was unstable. Brought up the sleepwalking, the therapy, even the cereal aisle breakdown. And it worked. The court sided with him. I stopped asking questions after that. The summer I turned 12, my mom sat me down again. Just like she had years earlier. "I need you to be strong for me, Casey." That was the moment I realized she wasn't strong anymore. And I didn't get to be a kid. Not really. I'd already grown up too much. That was the end of my childhood. Not with a crash, not with screaming. Just silence and that damn crack in the glass finally splitting all the way through. When I was 14, I started realizing just how much my mom had given up for me. I knew we weren't rich. That was obvious from the fading paint in the hallway, the meals that came from discount bins, the heater that rattled in winter but never quite warmed the place. But I didn't understand the depth of her sacrifices until much later. After the divorce, my mom picked up a cleaning job at a downtown office building. Night shifts. She'd leave around 9 p.m. and get back at dawn. On weekends, she worked at a bakery owned by some woman named Lorraine who barked orders like a drill sergeant and underpaid everyone but thought free leftover muffins made it okay. My mom never complained, not once. She'd just rub her aching wrists, pop 2 ibuprofen, and kiss me on the forehead before collapsing onto the couch. She looked older every month. Lines etched into her face. Her hands turned dry, cracked from chemicals and flour. But she never stopped. I started drawing more around that time. I didn't know why, maybe because it was the one thing that felt like mine. I'd sketch faces from memory, places I saw in dreams, sometimes just abstract lines that turned into something I didn't expect. One day, my art teacher, Miss Blake, saw a sketch I'd done of my mom falling asleep on the bus. She pulled me aside after class. "This is real," she said, tapping the page. "You've got something. You ever think about art school?" I laughed. "We can't afford anything like that." She looked at me for a second. "That's not the point. You should think about it anyway." I told my mom that night. She was pulling off her shoes, one heel blistered open and bleeding. "I want to try for art school," I said, trying to sound casual. She didn't answer right away. Just stared at me, barefoot and tired. Then she smiled. Not wide, but soft, like something inside her relaxed. "Then that's what we'll do." I thought she meant scholarships or community college classes. I didn't know what she really meant. She started working double shifts. Some days she'd clean 2 buildings back to back, then go straight to the bakery and come home swaying like her bones might give out. Once, she collapsed in the bathroom. I heard the thud and ran in. She was on the floor, breathing heavy, clutching her stomach. "I'm fine," she gasped, waving me off. "Just tired. Go back to bed." But I didn't sleep that night. I stayed outside the bathroom door until I heard her snoring on the floor tiles. A month later, she sat me down with an old wooden box. I'd never seen it before. It had a faded velvet lining and smelled faintly of perfume and cedar. Inside was a set of jewelry, a gold locket, 2 rings, and a sapphire brooch that sparkled like a piece of the night sky. "This was my mother's," she said quietly. "She left it to me before she died. I was saving it, but you need this more." I didn't understand what she meant until the next day, when she came home holding a bank envelope. $8,500, she said. "That'll cover your application fees, supplies, and the first semester if you get in." I couldn't speak. I didn't know what to say. She'd sold her inheritance. Her memory of her mother. For me. I got into a private art university a few hours away. Not the top school, but a good one. Real studios, real professors, real shot. I was 17, and I felt like the world was finally cracking open in a good way. But the road there wasn't smooth. 2 months before my acceptance letter came, the bakery caught fire. Faulty wiring. No insurance. Lorraine shut the place down overnight. Just a "sorry girls" and a handwritten sign on the door. My mom cried that night. Not loud, not theatrical. Just silent tears while she sipped tea and stared out the window like she was watching her life burn down too. She tried applying to other places, but nobody wanted someone her age for weekend work. Not when they could hire teenagers for less. So she picked up another cleaning gig, this one at a hospital. Hospitals are the worst. People treat cleaners like shadows there. She came home smelling like bleach and sickness, hands raw from gloves that didn't fit. One morning, she found a used syringe in the corner of a patient's room. It had rolled under the bed. She accidentally jabbed herself while picking it up. They had to test her for everything. HIV, hepatitis, you name it. She didn't tell me until the results came back clean. Said she didn't want me to worry. By then, I was already skipping meals to make sure we had enough food. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and didn't want to admit it. We had one neighbor, Miss Geraldine, an old widow who lived upstairs. She had this habit of watching people through her window and reporting on everyone's business like a human CCTV. One day, she came down with a bag of groceries and handed them to me. "Your mom's working herself to the grave," she said, no sugarcoating. "Don't let her." Like I had any power to stop her. That summer, I took on a part-time job at a bookstore. It paid like trash, but I used every dollar for supplies. Sketchbooks, pens, the portfolio case I needed to submit my work. I didn't tell my mom I was working until she saw the calluses on my fingers from carrying boxes. "I wanted to help," I said. She didn't yell. She didn't smile. She just pulled me into a hug and didn't let go for a long time. Then something awful happened. A man named Don, who worked as a building supervisor at one of the places my mom cleaned, started harassing her. He was in his 50s, overweight, always reeking of cigarettes. It started with jokes, then turned into him blocking her in the supply closet, saying she should relax a little after hours. She never told anyone, afraid she'd lose the job. But one night, she came home with bruises on her arm and a split lip. I lost it. I begged her to go to the police. She refused. "He's my manager," she whispered. "If I report him, I'll be blacklisted. I can't risk it, Casey. We need the money." I wanted to scream. Instead, I sent an anonymous complaint to the building's corporate office, detailed everything, made it look like it came from a tenant. 2 weeks later, Dawn was fired for inappropriate conduct. My mom never found out it was me. She thought karma had finally caught up. But she still flinched every time someone walked too close behind her. In the fall, I got a scholarship offer, a small one, only partial, from a local arts charity. It wasn't enough, but it meant we could stretch the $8,500 farther. My mom cried again, this time with pride. "You're going to be more than I ever was," she said. That night, I found her asleep at the kitchen table, cheek pressed against a bill she'd been trying to calculate. I covered her with my old hoodie and left the light on. On my last day before moving to the university dorms, we packed everything into 2 suitcases. My mom had sewn a small patch into my backpack, a tiny blue square cut from one of her old scarves. "This way, I'm always with you," she said. I hugged her tighter than I ever had before. When I got on the bus, she waved until I couldn't see her anymore. She never remarried, never traveled, never bought anything for herself. But she gave me everything. And I will never forget what she sold to make it happen. University felt like another planet. I arrived with 2 suitcases, a portfolio folder, and exactly $147 in my checking account. My dorm room was the size of a closet, shared with a girl named Ria who always left coffee cups everywhere and painted her nails at 3 a.m. I didn't complain. I was used to surviving. The school was intense. Lectures during the day, studio time late into the night, assignments that swallowed whole weekends. Most of my classmates came from money. They had tablets that cost more than our rent back home, went home on breaks to places with pools and private driveways. I couldn't relate to them. At all. So I kept to myself. I bought instant noodles in bulk, hunted campus boards for free event snacks, and worked part-time at a local copy shop that paid minimum wage and didn't let you sit down for more than 5 minutes. I'd stand there for hours running prints, my shoes sticking to the linoleum, fantasizing about just one person noticing my work. I'd been posting online since I was 15, mostly sketches, a few short comics. But now I tried harder. I opened commissions. Freelance illustrator, I wrote on my profile bio, even though I'd never been paid a dime for a drawing. I applied to everything. Book covers, logo design, t-shirt graphics, concept art contests for online studios that didn't even list their company names. I was rejected over and over. Sometimes I didn't even get a reply. Other times I got the classic, "Your style doesn't align with our vision." That one made me want to scream. What was their vision? Who was I even drawing for? Once I landed a fake job. A guy named Trent messaged me asking for a digital portrait of his girlfriend for her birthday. I worked 2 days straight on it, pouring every ounce of skill I had into capturing every curl of her hair, the way she smiled crookedly in the photo he sent. When I sent the final version, he vanished. Deleted his account. I never saw a dime. I cried for an hour. Then I made a version of the portrait without the girlfriend's face, replaced it with a skull, and posted it online as a personal piece. I titled it Commission Ghost. It got 5 likes. The first real breakthrough didn't come from where I expected. One night, exhausted and anxious about rent, I posted a speed paint on a small subreddit dedicated to indie game development. It was a quick sci-fi scene I'd done between assignments, just a lone astronaut staring at a crumbling space station. I almost didn't post it. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But I was tired of waiting to be ready. The next morning, I woke up to a full inbox. A user named Toad Tears had commented, "This looks like something out of Void Skimmer. Ever thought of doing backgrounds for games?" I replied instantly. I'd never done it before, but I lied and said yes. Toad Tears turned out to be a guy named Nico. He was lead developer for a tiny studio called Panicworm. Their last game had flopped, but they were working on something new, a pixel horror side-scroller with atmospheric art and minimal dialogue. He said my painting felt like their mood. He offered me a test piece, unpaid at first, just to see if the vibe fits. I took it. I skipped class, ignored homework, and worked 2 full days on a scene, a flickering hallway lit only by dying bulbs, blood-smeared windows, and a tiny silhouette in the distance. It was claustrophobic, gritty, dark. I loved it. He loved it too. Nico offered me a paid contract, $400 for 10 background scenes. It wasn't much, but it was real. A job. A credit. I screamed when I read the email. Ria thought I'd hurt myself and came running with a hairbrush in her hand like a weapon. I got a job. I yelled. She blinked. Like, with insurance? No. But still. The day I signed that contract, I took the bus to a cheap diner across from campus and bought myself a grilled cheese and a slice of key lime pie. I texted my mom a picture of the check when it came in the mail. She replied with a string of emojis she didn't know how to use and a photo of her holding the phone upside down. The game called Downhill Exit launched 6 months later. It didn't go viral. It didn't win awards. But it built a niche audience. YouTubers did Let's Plays. A few Twitch streamers mentioned how freaky and immersive the backgrounds felt. For the first time in my life, people talked about something I made. But it wasn't all good. A user on a gaming forum accused Panicworm of using AI art. Said my work looked too good to be real. Nico backed me up. Showed receipts, screenshots, PSD files. But the damage was done. The thread got thousands of views, and some trolls started messaging me. One guy kept sending me links to his own art, demanding I admit I'd stolen from him. Another sent an email with the subject line, "Fraudulent whores don't belong in indie." I reported them all, but nothing really happened. That's how the internet works. It wore me down. I stopped posting online for a while. I focused on school. But freelancing wasn't just a side thing anymore. It became survival. I took on anything. Twitch emotes, fan art commissions, anime avatars for rich kids with zero taste. I drew furry art under a fake name. I illustrated a romance novella for a woman in Idaho who kept asking me to make the main characters just 15% more manly. I didn't care. I needed the money. My mom had hurt her back mopping at the hospital and lost a week of work. I wired her half of every payment I got. She didn't ask. I didn't tell. That winter, I had $42 to my name, 1 working space heater, and was living off oatmeal and expired peanut butter. Then a classmate of mine, Ruben, got caught stealing equipment from the digital lab. Expensive cameras and lighting gear. He'd been selling it online to pay off gambling debts. When they arrested him on campus, it was snowing. I watched through the art building window as security let him out. He didn't resist. Just looked tired. That night, I got paranoid. I thought, what if I lost my job, got kicked out, ended up like that? So I stopped sleeping. I worked from 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. every night, doing freelance gigs in secret while pretending to be exploring new media for my assignments. My professor, Ms. Blake, same one from high school, now adjunct at the university, pulled me aside after midterms. "You're burning out," she said. "You're better than this." I wanted to laugh. Better than what? Surviving? But she was right. I was crashing. Hard. I got sick in March. Nothing dramatic. Just a long, hacking cough that wouldn't go away. I didn't have money for a doctor, so I drank tea and powered through. Then I fainted in the computer lab. Smacked my face on the desk on the way down. I woke up in the infirmary with a nosebleed, a headache, and a bill. It was only $89. But to me, it might as well have been $1,000. I didn't tell my mom. I told her I was fine. I always told her I was fine. The breakthrough came a few weeks later, through Nico again. Panicworm was hired by a bigger publisher to produce a mobile game, this time with more funding. He wanted me back, this time as a lead concept artist, $1,800 total, a formal contract, deadlines spread over 4 months. I said yes so fast I forgot to negotiate. I didn't care. It was my first real gig. Not one-off work. A place on the team. My name in the credits. I poured myself into it. Nights, weekends, between classes. I designed menus, UI overlays, background assets, even animated fog. I learned new software. I didn't sleep more than 5 hours a night for 2 months. The day the game launched, I cried in the back of the copy shop where I still worked weekends. My boss thought someone died. When I told him the truth, he just grunted and told me to stop wasting company tissues. But I didn't care. I was on the map. People were DMing me. Fans. Developers. A few weirdos, sure. But also offers. Real ones. For the first time, I wasn't begging for work. Work was finding me. And when I called my mom to tell her, her voice cracked. "You did it," she said. "You really did it." "No, Mom. We did." I still remember the moment Fragment Veil hit 10,000 downloads. I was at Nico's apartment, which doubled as Panicworm's unofficial headquarters, sitting on a milk crate with my laptop balanced on my knees. We were all crowded around the screen, Nico, Karina the programmer, Dex our audio guy, and me. I'd been staring at Steam's back-end analytics for hours, watching the graph climb like a miracle. We thought 500 downloads would be good. 1,000 would be insane. 10,000. None of us could speak for a full minute. Then Karina screamed, and Dex knocked over a beer bottle, and Nico hugged me so hard I almost cracked a rib. Fragment Veil was a side-scrolling psychological horror game about a girl trying to piece together her memories while trapped in a broken simulation. I'd poured my soul into it, painted every background by hand, designed the glitch transitions, even animated the protagonist's expressions frame by frame. There was one scene, a shattered mirror sequence, that took me 2 weeks and gave me wrist cramps that lasted the entire semester. But it was worth it. Reviews rolled in. YouTubers with real followings started playing it. One streamer, Bloomdagger, called it the creepiest game she'd played all year and shouted me out by name for the art. We didn't make millions. Not then. But we made enough to pay ourselves for the first time. I walked away from that project with $8,200 in my bank account, more money than I'd ever seen at once. I sent half to my mom without a word. She called me crying. Again. We were doing a lot of that lately. After graduation, I turned down a job at a major studio. The pay was steady. The benefits were real. But I knew I didn't belong in a cubicle designing icons for mobile casino apps. I wanted more than a paycheck. So I kept freelancing. I bounced between indie teams, sometimes working on 3 projects at once just to keep the lights on. I burned out. More than once. My doctor told me I had early signs of carpal tunnel. I wore wrist braces. Slept sitting up sometimes. Lived on ibuprofen and energy drinks. Then, during one of the lowest points, right after a major client ghosted me on a $5,000 payment, I got a message from someone I hadn't seen since university, Elijah Tress. Elijah was a genius-level coder who never went to class. He hacked the school's vending machine once so the granola bars dropped for free. He graduated with a 1.9 GPA and a playable RPG made entirely in Python. He was starting something new. A studio. Small, focused, flexible. He remembered my work from a collab we'd done in school and wanted me on board as a founding member. It didn't take me long to say yes. We called it Fever Bloom. 5 of us. Me, Elijah, a writer named Quinn, who had a reputation for being brilliant and clinically unhinged, Mina, the level designer, and Tyrone, who handled the business side, contracts, funding, talking to scary men in suits. We met in coffee shops and shared Google Docs. Our office was a Discord server. We worked day jobs to survive. I picked up contract work and commissions just to keep rent paid. But we were building something. The game was called Pale Lake, a survival horror adventure with branching narratives and a time loop mechanic. The idea was simple. You're trapped at a lake house with a group of strangers, and every time someone dies, the day resets. But only you remember. It was part puzzle, part psychological thriller. I designed everything. The lake, the cabin, the hallucination sequences, the twisted alternate versions of each character. I never pushed myself so hard. We worked 18 months straight. The night we launched Pale Lake, the servers crashed. At first we panicked, thought it was a bug. Then Tyrone got a call from the publisher's rep. You're trending. We hit number 4 on the Steam trending list. Then number 2. People were tweeting screenshots, fan theories, cosplay mock-ups within a week. A YouTuber with 5 million subscribers did a full playthrough with custom thumbnails. We sold 250,000 copies in the first month. Our cut after taxes and platform fees? Just over $1.2 million. I stared at the payment screen for 10 minutes. I didn't speak. Didn't move. It didn't feel real. I called my mom first. I paid off the mortgage, I told her. She went silent. Then she said, your grandma would be proud. And if she were alive, she'd also faint. Then she laughed. It was the happiest I'd ever heard her. But success isn't clean. It doesn't fix everything. Quinn had a breakdown a month later. Burned out. Vanished from the server. Stopped answering texts. Elijah spiraled into a depressive hole and stopped coding for weeks. Tyrone got threatened by a shady investor who thought he deserved a bigger cut. We were flying high, but the plane was rattling. I didn't let it stop me. I took my share and started planning. I wanted independence. Total control. My own vision. That summer, I left Fever Bloom with everyone's blessing and launched my own studio, Silver Needle. At first it was just me, a logo I designed myself, and a 3-page game proposal. But people believed in me. My name meant something now. I recruited 2 graduates I trusted, Ezra, 3D art, and Fallon, narrative designer, and we rented a tiny studio space above a vape shop that always smelled like sour cherries and chemicals. We started building Mirelight, a dreamlike puzzle horror game inspired by memories, identity, and erasure. I designed the entire world from scratch, abstract, shifting dreamscapes, decaying architecture, characters who looked like people you half remembered from childhood. It was weird, personal, risky, but I didn't care. I put everything into it. Every trauma, every nightmare, every memory of sleeping on the floor in my brother's empty room. It wasn't just art. It was autobiography. We launched a trailer on YouTube with 0 expectations. It hit 1 million views in 2 days. Emails flooded in. Publishers. Investors. One studio in Japan. A guy from Netflix. Even Epic reached out. But the one that stood out was a European publisher called Ikitas Interactive. They offered global distribution, localization in 12 languages, and a full-scale marketing campaign. Their deal, $1.2 million in guaranteed advance royalties, plus 40% of post-launch revenue. I hired a lawyer this time. After a month of back and forth, we signed. I didn't cry this time. I just sat there, staring at the contract, thinking about every rejection, every late night, every fake commission and missed meal. Then I called my mom again. I think I just became a millionaire, I told her. She went quiet, then said, "About damn time." We laughed for 10 minutes straight. But the funniest part? I still kept working. I still pulled all-nighters. I still panicked over deadlines and pixel spacing, and whether a single scene had enough emotional punch. Money didn't make me stop. It just made me unstoppable. I hadn't thought about my father in years. He was more like a smudge in my memory, someone I blurred over on purpose. After everything he did or didn't do, I built a wall in my mind. Behind it was him and Miles and a part of me I'd locked up to survive. Then one morning, after a press interview about my studio went semi-viral, I opened my inbox and saw the name. From Mark L. Grant. I froze. My hands hovered over the trackpad. For a second, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe spam. Maybe a different Mark. But then I opened the email. Subject: proud of you. Hey, Casey. I just saw that article about your game. What an accomplishment. You've really made something of yourself. Your mom must be proud. I hope life's been good to you. I know we've had distance, but I'd love to reconnect if you're open to it. There's actually something going on with Miles I wanted to talk to you about. He's trying to get back into school, and it's been tough. I'll explain more below. Anyway, if you're open to talking, I'd love to catch up. Your father. Mark. Below the signature was a link. GoFundMe.com/Miles-Grant-University-Fund. I clicked it. The campaign headline hit me like a punch to the ribs. Help my son reclaim his future. Tuition crisis after family abandonment. The goal: $48,000. The description was filled with vague emotional appeals. Phrases like, after being left behind by those who should have helped, a young man with dreams, unsupported by his own blood, and we all make mistakes, but family shouldn't forget you. There were two pictures. One of Miles looking gaunt, staring off into the distance like a soldier returning from war, and one of Mark, smiling into the camera like he'd just cured cancer. I hadn't seen either of them in almost a decade. And now here they were on my screen asking for money, with my story twisted into theirs. I didn't respond. Not right away. Instead, I sat there, staring at the page, fists clenched. Rage was crawling under my skin, sharp and burning. Not because he asked for money, but because of the lie. I forwarded the link to my mom. She called me 5 minutes later. "He's got some nerve," she snapped. "Acting like he was ever a father to you." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My brain was running loops. I looked up Miles' name just to confirm. His LinkedIn said he'd dropped out of college 2 years ago. No recent updates. No real explanation. I didn't know if the $48,000 was legit. But that wasn't the point. The point was, he waited until I became somebody. Then, he crawled back in with a handout. The next day, I got another email. "Hey again. Not sure if you saw the message. Just want to make sure you got it. I really think it would mean a lot to Miles if you helped out, even a little. He never stopped asking about you. I know we've had a lot of silence between us, but I'm hoping we can let that go. You've done great things. Let's not let old misunderstandings keep us apart." Mark. Misunderstandings? He walked away from me like I wasn't his. Took Miles. Told him I wasn't really family. Used a court system to keep me out of my brother's life. And now, years later, it was all just a misunderstanding? I replied, "Mark, I saw the fundraiser. I don't owe you anything. You made that clear when you left me behind. Do not contact me again." He didn't respond. Not to that message anyway. But 2 days later, a Twitter thread started trending. I was tagged in one of the replies. The original tweet came from an account named @RealFamilyTruths. It had 1 follower and was clearly a throwaway. Crazy how people can be so rich and famous and still forget where they came from. Abandoning your brother and pretending you never had a family? Unreal. Under it was a cropped screenshot of the GoFundMe. My name was blurred, barely, but not enough. A few replies guessed who it was. And soon enough, the thread was gaining steam. I tried to ignore it. But then, YouTubers started picking it up. TikTok drama accounts made videos titled, "Did Indie Darling Casey Grant Abandon Her Family?" and "The Dark Truth Behind This Self-Made Artist." I couldn't believe it. People I'd never met, never spoken to, were dissecting my past like it was entertainment. Making TikToks about family estrangement, theorizing that I'd grown cold, too successful to care about the people who raised me. Except they didn't raise me. Mark had done the bare minimum for Miles and nothing for me. And now he was painting himself as the martyr? I tried to stay silent. But the fire kept spreading. It wasn't just online. A local newspaper printed a human interest story about a family divided by fame. They quoted the GoFundMe like it was gospel. Then came the message from Miles. A DM on Instagram. I hadn't heard from him in 13 years. "I guess you saw the fundraiser. I didn't know Dad was gonna send it to you directly. But I do need the money. And you do have it. Doesn't that mean anything?" I stared at it for 20 minutes before typing. "You never reached out to me. Not once. And now you only do because I have money?" His reply came fast. "That's not fair. I was a kid. Dad told me things about you. I didn't know what to believe. I just want to finish school. I don't care about drama." I didn't know what to say. My whole life, I'd imagined this conversation. That he'd come back. That we'd reconnect. But now that it was here, all I felt was hollow. He'd let our father write the narrative. Let him spread lies. And now that there was cash on the table, he wanted to play nice. Then I got a voicemail from a woman named Talia Reynolds, a freelance reporter, who said she was doing a piece on public figures and their hidden families. Her voice was syrupy like a trap. I'd love to give you the chance to share your side, Casey. You know, before this story becomes something you can't control. I hung up halfway through. But it didn't stop. That night, someone tried to log into my email. Then my business site. Then my PayPal. All blocked. But it shook me. The next day, someone spray-painted "Fraud Daughter" on the window of my studio's building. The cops came. Said it was probably some online nut. Took a report. No arrests. Ezra and Fallon were scared. So was I. But I pretended to be calm. Then my mom called. She'd gotten an anonymous letter. Printed screenshots from the GoFundMe. A typed note that said, "You raised a selfish snake." She tried to act tough. But I could hear the quiver in her voice. "I'll be fine," she said. "Don't worry about me." But I did. I worried a lot. I considered deleting my accounts. Vanishing for a while. But why should I have to disappear? So I fought back. I released a statement through my publicist. It was short. Honest. Brutal. I was abandoned by my father when I was 9 years old. I have no relationship with him. I was separated from my brother by force, and attempts to reconnect were met with silence. Any claims suggesting I forgot my family are false, manipulative, and deeply cruel. I built my life through sacrifice. I owe my success to my mother and no one else. The press latched onto it. Suddenly the narrative shifted. Articles flipped. TikTok creators made apology updates. One even cried on camera, talking about how she judged too quickly. But the damage was already done. And the GoFundMe? It was shut down. I don't know how. Maybe someone reported it. Maybe the platform realized the lies. I didn't care. What mattered was that I saw Mark for what he truly was. Not a grieving father. Not a man desperate to help his son. Just a user. A leech. A man who saw my name in lights and thought, now's my chance. And Miles? Maybe he really did need the money. Maybe he was just lost. But he made his choice. He let someone else write the story. And now so have I. Fame doesn't feel like a red carpet. Sometimes, it feels like a gun pressed to your spine while you smile for the camera. After the GoFundMe debacle, I thought it would taper off. The internet always moves on, right? A new scandal, a new name to drag. But Mark didn't go quietly. He didn't slink back into the hole he crawled out of. He doubled down. First came the fake documents. I got an envelope delivered to Silver Needle's office. Unmarked. No return address. Inside were photocopies of what looked like old contracts. They had my name on them. And his. The top page read, "Consultation Agreement. Silver Needle Studios, Mark Grant. Dated 3 years ago. Signed. Notarized." Except I'd never seen that document in my life. The signature wasn't mine. Just a close imitation. The logo was an outdated version from when I was still prototyping. And the notary stamp? I looked it up. The listed office in Connecticut didn't exist. He'd fabricated the entire thing. I took the documents straight to Fallon. She stared at them in disbelief. "He's trying to create a paper trail," she said. "To make it look like he helped build your company." I laughed, dry and bitter. He didn't even help build my childhood. We shredded the papers. But it didn't end there. A month later, my studio was invited to headline a major gaming convention in Chicago, BitAccess Expo, one of the largest on the East Coast. It was our first time presenting a live build of Firelight, and I was scheduled to give the keynote. It was supposed to be a milestone. Instead, it turned into a war zone. The day started fine. Fans lined up for our booth. I signed posters. Took photos. A young girl handed me a handmade drawing of the game's protagonist and said, "You made me want to learn art." I nearly cried. Then came the panel. I walked out onto the stage. Blinding lights. Cheering crowd. The host hyping up the moment. I started my speech, smooth, polished. Rehearsed a dozen times. And then, 30 seconds in, a voice rang out from the crowd. None of this would have happened without me. I froze. The security guard nearest the stage moved, but not fast enough. The man was already pushing through the crowd, Mark. Wearing a conference badge, his arms raised like he was stepping into a church revival. "I'm her father," he shouted, smiling. And I was there from the beginning. The room went dead silent. My mic was still hot. I said, loud and clear, "That man is not affiliated with me. Remove him." He kept shouting. "She wouldn't be here without me. You all know it. She won't even admit where she came from." 2 guards grabbed him, but he fought. Actually fought, elbowed one in the gut and had to be wrestled to the ground. Fans were recording the whole thing on their phones. Someone live streamed it on Twitch. Comments flew. "WTF is this? Is this part of the panel? Why is security so slow?" He was dragged out of the venue screaming. That night, the clips hit every platform. Indie game stars' father crashes panel in public meltdown. News outlets ran with it. Some framed it sympathetically. Estranged father desperate for recognition. Others got it right. Unhinged man disrupts event with false claims. But the worst part? He kept going. 2 days after the incident, I got served. He'd filed a civil suit, claiming he'd contributed to the intellectual foundation of Firelight through guidance and emotional inspiration. His filing listed paternal influence as a basis for joint ownership. I laughed when I read that. Then I hired a lawyer. Her name was Lena Voss, and she was exactly what I needed. Former entertainment litigator, sharp as a knife, no time for games. She showed up to our first meeting in a slate gray suit, dropped a folder on the table, and said, "I've dealt with worse. But not by much." We got to work. She dug deep. Pulled every receipt, every contract, every time-stamped email from the early days of Silver Needle. We built a timeline that would make a prosecutor proud. She cross-referenced every lie in his claim, every statement he made to the media, and compiled a full report of malicious defamation. "Do you want to countersue?" she asked. I hesitated. "I don't want money. I just want him to stop." She nodded. "Then we'll go for injunction." We filed for a cease and desist, followed by a formal defamation suit. We cited the forged documents, the public disturbance, and the social media campaign he'd coordinated with 3 known burner accounts tied to his IP address. He'd been anonymously spamming Reddit threads, Discord servers, even Steam reviews for Pale Lake and Mirelight, writing things like, "The real brains behind this game isn't even credited." She stole ideas from her own dad and cut him out. Once we had the digital evidence, Lena smiled for the first time. "This'll bury him." And it did. Legally, at least. The judge issued a restraining order and dismissed his civil case with prejudice. We didn't even get to trial. The judge called his claims a laughable attempt at rewriting history through performance. But it didn't stop him outside the courtroom. He started giving interviews to tabloid YouTubers. Podcasts with names like Unfiltered Origins and Behind the Screens. He sat in dimly lit rooms with fake plants behind him, saying things like, "My daughter doesn't want people to know the truth. She's changed." Fame does that to people. I tried to protect her from the dark side of the industry, but she wouldn't listen. One podcaster asked, "Do you think she hates you?" He leaned back in his chair, smirked. "I think she hates herself." That clip went viral. I stayed quiet, but Lena didn't. She sent takedown notices to every platform. Filed DMCA claims for use of my copyrighted material in his rants. We started a digital firewall. Any mention of Mark Grant in connection with my studio was filtered, flagged, and legally challenged. But it came with a cost. My staff got doxxed. Ezra's address was posted on a forum. Fallon's younger brother got prank called by someone pretending to be from the IRS. Mina, our sound designer, quit after someone sent her a package with a dead bird and a note that said, "Loyalty is a choice." I moved into a building with 24-hour security. Had cameras installed in the studio. My inbox was filtered by a third-party team. I became a fortress. But it's lonely in a fortress. One night, after a long day of redlining voiceover scripts, I got a call from my mom. She'd seen another podcast clip. She asked if I was okay. "I'm fine," I said as always. "You don't sound fine." I broke down. Everything came out. The stress. The fear. The exhaustion of constantly defending my name, my work, my life. The way it all felt tainted. The thing I'd built from ashes now dragged through the dirt by a man who never lifted a finger for me. She let me cry. Then she said, "He's doing this because you're something he never was." Respected. That stuck with me. In the weeks after, the drama started to cool. People moved on. I released a dev diary about Mirelight, showed early alpha footage of our next expansion. The fans came back. The players stayed loyal. But Mark? He still lurks. Sometimes I'll see a new comment pop up on some old thread. "Didn't her dad say she stole that idea from him?" Or, "I heard she's estranged from her whole family." They're always anonymous. Always familiar in tone. He's still out there. Whining. Lying. Raging against the fact that no one listens to him anymore. But I don't flinch anymore. He had his chance to be in my story. He chose to be the villain. The idea came to me while staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., insomnia clawing at the edges of my thoughts. I was thinking about my mom, about everything she'd sacrificed so I could hold the life I had now in my hands, and about how many girls out there had no one. No guiding voice. No tired woman working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. Just silence. Just survival. I thought about what she'd do if she had the power I had now. That's how the Elena Grant Foundation began. We launched it quietly at first. No flashy rollout. No celebrity endorsements. Just a mission. To fund scholarships for girls in creative fields who had no family support. Girls like me. We received over 300 applications in the first week. Letters that gutted me. Stories of orphanages, foster care, violence, estrangement, grief. One girl, Lena, wrote that she drew on the backs of fast food receipts because she couldn't afford paper. Another, Ayana, had been kicked out at 17 after coming out as queer. My team and I reviewed every letter. I read them out loud to my mom over the phone, both of us crying some nights. These girls deserved more than just a check. They deserved someone to say, "I believe in you. Keep going." We started with 5 recipients. Full tuition, supplies, a laptop, and a monthly stipend. No strings attached. I made it a rule that the winners didn't have to give speeches or be paraded around for press. Just live. Just create. That year, we held our first award ceremony. Not in some sterile hall, but in an old art gallery in Midtown that still smelled like varnish and paint thinner. We invited alumni, donors, staff, and the scholarship recipients. It wasn't black tie. It was whatever made you feel powerful. My mom flew in for it. I bought her a first-class ticket and told her not to argue. The day of the event, I met her at the door. She looked nervous, tugging at the hem of her new dress, her hair styled by a professional for the first time in 20 years. Then I saw it, the necklace. It was the piece I designed for her, a pendant shaped like a brushstroke wrapped in a flame. I'd worked with a local jeweler to make it from reclaimed silver. On the back, I had engraved, "For what you gave me, and what you never asked for." She clutched it without a word, just smiled, her eyes wet. When she stepped onto the small stage and the room stood for her, I saw her fully, not tired, not worn, not just a mother who cleaned floors and baked bread, but a legacy. Mine. But of course, nothing gold ever stays untarnished for long. The email came 3 days later. From Mark Grant. Just his name on my screen made my stomach turn. I assume you've heard. The bank's taking the house. Miles is staying with friends. I'm not asking for anything. Just thought you should know what happens when family turns its back. Congratulations on the awards. Must be nice to have enough to hand out while your own father is getting evicted. Attached was a scan of the foreclosure notice. Real. Dated last week. Past due taxes, missed mortgage payments, official stamps in cold, bureaucratic type. For a second, I felt something. Not sympathy. Not guilt. Just something. Then it passed. I closed the email. I didn't respond. But that night, I logged into an anonymous donation platform used by the foundation. I created a throwaway account. No name. No contact info. Just one donation. $23,000, wired to the mortgage lender listed in the foreclosure document. Enough to halt the process. No more. No explanation. I did it not for him. Not for redemption. Not even for Miles. I did it because I knew if I didn't, it would eat me. Because I needed to know, if only for myself, that I wasn't like him. But he never knew it came from me. A week later, a local paper reported that a mysterious donor had saved a small-town home from auction. Mark reposted the article on Facebook, captioned, "Sometimes grace finds you. Thank you to whoever remembered that family matters." He still didn't get it. That same week, one of the scholarship girls, Yulia, sent me a message. She'd won an animation contest judged by a panel from Pixar. Her short film was based on a dream she had about her younger self climbing out of a well. The judges called it unflinching, beautiful, devastating. Her note said, "I wouldn't be here without that email. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did." I printed it out and hung it in the office, right next to my first rejection letter from a game publisher. Because that's what this was about now, legacy. Not credits or downloads or headlines. But this. The girl who didn't have a father. The mother who gave her everything. The voice that said, "Keep going."